You just planted your young tomatoes and pepper plants. You picture this huge harvest at the end of the summer, and then you see it, yellow leaves. Now, before you panic, here's the part most gardeners actually never hear. Yellow leaves actually mean almost never the real problem. They're actually the symptom, and if you misread the symptom, you can actually make things a whole lot worse. Most people immediately go and they grab the fertilizer, or they start watering more, or they start spraying just random stuff on them. And that is exactly how you get plants that are healthy and you destroy them. Instead, we're going to do this the right way. Think of this like a plant crime scene. The leaves are giving you all the clues, very specific clues. Once you know how to read them, you're actually going to know exactly what the plant is missing. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how 5 real causes can cause these yellowing leaves on these young tomatoes and these young pepper plants. I'm also going to show you the exact fix for each one, so you don't actually waste your time, you don't waste your money, and more importantly, you don't waste your entire season guessing. Alright, let's start with the number 1 most common reason for yellowing leaves, and that's usually a nutrient deficiency. Just like us, young plants need a balanced diet in order to grow strong. Tomatoes in particular, or what we actually call heavy feeders. They're very, very hungry. They need twice the nutrients of a cucumber and almost 4 times as much nutrients as beans. So when the soil can't provide that meal, the plant can't make enough chlorophyll. That's the stuff that actually makes the green, or the leaves green, and they actually start to turn yellow. So the most frequent culprit is the lack of nitrogen. Now, your plant is smart. Nitrogen is actually mobile, which means that the plant can actually pull it from the older, lower leaves and send it to the new, important growth at the top. This gives you your biggest clue. So if you see a uniform pale yellow, or starting on the lowest part of the leaves and they slowly move up the plant, it's a safe bet that you have a nitrogen deficiency. This happens a whole lot after transplanting. So especially in raised beds or containers. That's where the initial nutrients get used up really, really quickly. So what's the fix? Simple. Grab your plants, grab a good balanced liquid fertilizer. Now, I like to use liquid. Liquid fertilizer like fish emulsion works wonders. You're going to basically be giving that young plant the good meal that it's been craving since you put it in the raised bed. But what if the yellow looks different? What if it's the veins on the leaves that are green, but the tissue in between them is a little yellow? Almost like a molted pattern. And this is also happening on the older, lower leaves. That is a classic calling card of a magnesium deficiency. Magnesium is actually critical for the photosynthesis, and when it runs low, you see this very distinct pattern called intervenal chlorosis. The fix here is a secret weapon for most seasoned gardeners already know, and that's Epsom salts. It's just a magnesium sulfate. Dissolve 1 or 2 tablespoons or so in a gallon of water and drench the soil around the plant's base. This gives the roots a direct shot of that magnesium that they're desperately asking for. And lastly, let's talk about iron deficiency. This looks very, very similar to the magnesium deficiency. Yellow leaves with green veins, but there's one huge difference here. It shows up on the newest and youngest leaves at the very top of your plant first. Iron is actually immobile, so that means the plant can't move it from the older leaves to the newer ones. This problem isn't usually a lack of iron in the soil, but an issue with the soil's pH, which we'll get into in here in a minute. The fast fix is a product called chelated iron, which makes the iron available to your plants no matter what the pH is. Okay, I know nutrient issues can seem really, really complex, but once you learn how to read the leaves, you'll know exactly what your plants are asking for. If you're finding this breakdown helpful and you want to become a more confident, stress-free gardener, take a second to hit that subscribe button down below. I put videos out like this every single week to help you get your best harvest ever. All right, the next big cause of yellow leaves is something we all do with the best intentions, and that's watering. It's probably the most common mistake with new plants. Too much water and too little water can actually lead to yellowing leaves. So let's start with overwatering, because that's way more uncommon. We love our new little plants so much that we drown them with affection, literally, and water. But there's a problem. When the soil is consistently soggy, the young developing roots cannot breathe. We're literally suffocating and drowning these roots. Drowning roots cannot absorb nutrients, even if your soil is perfect, which leads you right back to those nutrient deficiencies. The signs are often droopy, limp leaves that turn yellow. In pots, this is extra dangerous, because if you don't have good enough drainage, the roots actually sit in a puddle of water and start to rot. You'll know it, you'll smell it. It smells like rotten eggs, and the roots will be brown and slimy instead of white and firm. So the fix, step away from the watering can. Seriously, just stop for a bit. Don't water again until the top 2 or 3 inches of soil are actually bone dry. The best tool for this, it's actually your finger. Stick your finger down deep into the soil. If you feel any moisture, wait. When you do water, water deeply but less often. For all of my container gardeners, make sure that those pots have plenty of drainage holes. On the flip side, there's underwatering. A thirsty young plant will also get yellow leaves as it tries to conserve that water by sacrificing the foliage. The difference here is that the leaves will usually look wilted, but they're going to feel dry and crispy right before they turn yellow. The soil will also feel like a desert several inches down. So to fix this one, it's obvious. Give your plant a drink. A deep, thorough soaking is what it needs. For a really dehydrated pot, try to bottom water. Just place this big old pot into a tub of water for about 30 minutes and let it soak the water up from the bottom. Especially as the days get hotter and the days get longer, add a layer of mulch. It makes a huge difference to lock that precious moisture in. So if you've ruled out the nutrients and the watering, it's time to investigate for diseases. For young tomatoes and peppers, a really common one that causes yellow leaves is a fungal infection called early blight. And I know you've heard of this. Early blight almost always starts on the lower, older leaves, the ones closest to the soil. Why? Because that's where the fungal spores live, in the soil, and it gets splashed up onto your leaves when you water or when it rains. The telltale sign isn't just yellowing, you're going to actually see small brown to black spots on the leaves as well. As these spots start to grow, they often form a very distinct bullseye or target pattern. If the leaf tissue around those spots turns yellow, and eventually the whole leaf dies and falls off and the disease actually climbs the plant, the moment you're sure that it's early blight, you've got to act fast in order to save this plant. First, prune off every single affected area. Don't you dare throw those into the compost bin. Put them in the trash and stop the spread. Next, we're going to create some airflow. Crowded plants actually stay damp, which is basically a fungal paradise. Pruning some of the lower branches, even the healthy ones, can actually make a huge difference for that airflow. For prevention, always apply a good layer of mulch around your plants. This is a physical barrier that actually keeps the soil from splashing up onto the leaves. If it's a persistent problem, a copper-based fungicide can actually help. It only works as a preventative measure, not after you already have early blight. Now for a sneaky cause and powerful is your soil's pH. All pH means is how acidic or alkaline your soil is. This is actually critical in the start of the season. pH levels is the gatekeeper for nutrients. You can have the most fertile soil, but if your pH is wrong, the nutrients get chemically locked up and your younger plants can't access them. Tomatoes and peppers like their soil slightly acidic. With a pH of around 6.2 or 6.8. If your soil gets too alkaline, a pH above 7.0, then it can completely block the plant from actually taking up nutrients like iron. Remember that iron deficient we talked about with the yellowing leaves and the green veins? A high pH is often a villain behind the scenes. So how do you know if your pH is a problem? Well, there's one simple way. You go grab a simple, cheap soil test kit from any garden center. It's a quick, essential step when you actually start a new garden bed. So if you find that your soil is actually too alkaline, you can lower the pH by adding amendments like elemental sulfur. If it's too acidic, you can raise it with lime. These are all available in your garden centers or big box stores, and the package will tell you exactly how much to use. Adjusting pH isn't an overnight fix, so don't think that. It can actually take weeks or even months. Getting it to the right area in the beginning of the season is one of the best long-term things that you can do for the health of your garden. So finally, let's cover a few environmental stressors that can actually turn your leaves yellow. Sometimes it's not a disease or deficiency, but it's just a plant having a very, very tough time settling in. Tiny bugs like aphids, spider mites, they love to suck the life out of tender new leaves, causing yellow spots. To find them, actually just flip over the leaves. That's their favorite hiding spot. A good strong blast of water can actually knock them off. For a real infestation, insecticidal soap or neem oil are really great organic choices. Then there's the temperature shock. Tomatoes and peppers are sun worshippers. So if they get hit with an unexpected cold snap, especially after you've just planted them in, they can actually turn yellow from just the stress. A sudden heat wave can actually cause leaf scorch or the edges of them to turn yellow and brown. You can use a frost blanket to protect the young plants from that late cold spell. And last, there's the actual transplant shock. This is the most likely reason for your yellowing leaves. If you just put your seedling in the ground and the lowest leaves start to turn yellow, don't sweat it too much. This is a super common reaction to the stress of moving the plant from indoors to outdoors. The plant is focusing all of its new energy on the roots and is not maintaining the old leaves. As long as the new growth on the top looks green and healthy, the plant will almost always recover on its own. Just give it a little bit of care and it's going to bounce back. And there you have it, the 5 main culprits behind yellowing leaves on your new tomatoes and peppers. It could be a nutrient deficiency, it could be watering issues, a fungal disease, a pH imbalance, or it could be just a plain stress of getting established. The most important thing you can do is to look closely at the clues your plant's trying to give you. Where is the yellowing starting? Old or new leaves? Are there any spots? By playing a detective, you can actually figure out what's wrong and apply the right fix. Yellow leaves are a warning sign, but they're rarely a death sentence, especially on young plants. Your plants are talking to you, and now you know how to speak their language. So what's the most common cause for yellowing leaves that you've seen in your garden right after planting? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what stories you have behind this. If this video has helped you solve your plant mystery, give it a thumbs up and think about subscribing for more easy to understand gardening advice. Now then, go out there and save those plants and get ready for the greatest season of growth. And like always, keep it growing.